Welcome to another episode of Unsanctioned. Don't forget to leave a like or rating wherever you listen to Unsanctioned. It helps us to reach more people looking to travel down the path less taken. We have a new website where we sell products and services over at www.unsanctionedonline.com.
And don't forget to join us over on Patreon at patreon.com/unsanctioned. The UNS is capitalized, where we have 3 tiers for you to embark upon: the heretic, the malefactor, and the blasphemer.
We have an email. Use it. We want to hear from you. Send us your stories, experiences, questions, and more to podcastunsanctioned@gmail.com. You know me, I'm Sebastian, the Sorcerer of Annihilation. You can find me on social media at sebas_the_storm on Instagram and Threads, where I offer services like divination, spellwork, and sorcery for hire.
I am La Echiseta Len. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at echiseta_Len.
And you can find us, the podcast Unsanctioned, over on Instagram and Threads over at Unsanctioned Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Today, joining us is a very special guest, an amazing and well-known practitioner known as the Chaotic Witch Aunt, Frankie Castanea, who will shed light on their experiences and thoughts with today's subject, the justified work of the folk. Welcome, Frankie. And before we dive in, please tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided this would be a topic for today.
Hi, everyone. I got a fuzz flying by. Don't mind me. My name is Frankie Castanea. I am an Italian-American folk practitioner. I am a heretic, an animist, a spirit worker. I work quite a lot with folk magic from Italian-American and that cultural background, but there are also lineages I've been invited into as a guest that I hold with a lot of love and a lot of grace. And the concept of justified work comes from some of those lineages as well as my own background in like Italian American culture and just kind of a very intense focus on not just protection, healing, benediction, but what is justice and what is justified, especially right now. This kind of concept of justified work originally came from for me, I learned about it from the Death Witch, Loretta Ledesma, who runs Noctavia Obscure in downtown Denver. And the thing that she focused, and it was the first class I ever took with her, and she was like, well, is it justified? And I go, I don't know what that means. And she's like, well, is it going to matter in 5 years? Are you pulling cards beforehand? Is it all of this? And it's a focus on not just justice, but if every working we're doing is justified, especially if it's against another person. And so justified work of the folk for me is something that I love very dearly. I taught a class in Salem last year called The Bane and Blessing of Italian American Folk Magic, and it focused in on justified work. For me, it's become, especially right now in the godless year 2026, there's a lot of focus in my everyday on justified things and justice. So it's very much incorporated in everything I do.
I love that. One thing about us over here as Latinos is we love justified work. Bitch, we even love unjustified work. JK. That's a joke.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. But yeah, no, that's fantastic. Actually, I want to kind of turn things around really quick before we get into the rest of the questions. I'm going to turn your question around on you, Frankie, that you asked me in the pre-show. Do you find that your name as the Chaotic Witch Ant brings a lot of chaotic energy to you?
Yes. Oh yeah. It's really funny because I was like, for a long time, I'm like, I'm not that chaotic. It's not that bad. And then people meet me and it's like, I'm like rolling in like a tumbleweed, like a Sonic the Hedgehog tumbleweed, like fucking flitting around the building and rolling out again. And everyone's like, what the fuck just happened? And there are times when I'm more collected, but I also have like a lot of brain fog from chronic illness. So it does kind of manifest in not just the name, but in like my brain being a bit scattered. um, but I kind of got used to it. I work with a lot of trickster spirits, not like bad tricksters, but like canonically folkloric tricksters. And there's a little bit of chaos that comes in from working with them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I get it. Working with storm spirits, same. Um,
Mhm.
Sometimes they are categorized as trickster spirits in different cultures, but yeah, it's very much the same.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Well, on that note, I know you kind of talked about it briefly, but can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your practice before we kind
Mhm.
of dive into the rest of the justified work?
Yeah, so I am a how most people would describe it as third generation Italian American. My nana immigrated when she was just a girl with her mom, and then I have a mom, and then it's me, so it's three. Also a lucky number for us, so I'm rolling with it. Um, but I have always kind of been raised, and I was raised in like an Italian American family in a way that there were some things that we did that I didn't realize that other people didn't do until later. But like many people growing up in high school and all these other things, I wasn't really in touch with the culture in the way that I really wanted to be. Um, because, you're a teenage femme presenting person and you're like, I'm already weird. I'm already quirky. I don't need anything else making me weird and quirky. I'm in a theater club. I love it. Like it's one of those things too that we can always talk about, like assimilation into whiteness from cultures, especially Italian Americans. Um, but further than that, I kind of started reconnecting when I was it was 2022, 2021. I began musing with the idea and researching in 2021. And then in 2022, I really started kind of kicking off with classes and um, learning. And part of this is like living and being in relationship to the culture of Italian Americans, and which is diasporic in nature and different than those who are still living in Italy. Even though it comes from the same place, our culture is a bit more reminiscent of maybe an older Italy because we immigrated at a specific time than it is the modern day Italy. Um, and it definitely has its own folklore and folk practices. A lot of them were made in enclaves like New York, New Jersey, Louisiana. Um, all of these different enclaves of Italian Americans influence the magic that I do now. Even Denver had a Italian American enclave for a bit. We don't have it anymore. There are a few people trying to revive it, but there was a really big populace of Italian Americans in Denver at one point, down by Our Lady of Mount Carmel. But it is one of those things that for me, I spent it's been 5 years reconnecting, and part of it now is just like it's just the things that I do when something is wrong or when I think I have an evil eye or when I need a cleanse. I have particular methods about going about it and particular ethics and morals that kind of define how I practice that are based in not just that culture, but my experiences with that culture as well.
I love that. I think for us as Latinos, we can kind of relate a lot to that. Especially like I'm a firstborn, first generation from an immigrant. So my mother immigrated out here. Um, And I think you said something that's like really a key component that I think a lot of people forget as children of immigrants. Like whoever the immigrant was, the culture is frozen in time, right? The culture is almost like cryo freezed at that point in which the person left. And that is what you have, right? So, like for us, like for you, you have when your grandmother, right, left and it freezes there, right? Because the culture still grows and continues even after they leave, but since they're no longer integrated, um, it's kind of frozen in time, right? So you have that older Italy kind of vibe going with that, and I don't mean that nonchalantly, but I mean that in like the true sense of like everything that was going on in that time is frozen there. And the same thing with me and my family. It was a little there. There is that integration that occurs as well, where some immigrants I feel like it's one of two ways. Like immigrants might fully abandon their culture to try and become American and abandon all of it entirely, or they try and hold on to it as much as they can, and be like, no, remember where we came from, and like always hold on to that culture. You're not from here. So there's like this one or two ways of the extremes. Unfortunately, my family, when they immigrated, kind of went towards the we're in America, we're American. The only culture we have is Catholicism. Um, and you're muted, Len. But
No,
yeah.
I know, same, but
Okay.
it's just like it's awful. It's not awful because I completely understand why they made the decisions that they did. But I didn't get the chance to connect with the culture the way that I wanted to and that I wish that I did. And I'm just grateful that I have family in Mexico that I can engage with, that I can still communicate with. Um, but with shit going on here in the States, it's getting harder to leave and harder to travel, and I can't, I'm not even sure I can get a passport anymore. We'll see.
Who knows? They might pick me up one day and send me there themselves. So
Oh, I'll come hang out with you guys. I'll be like, "Okay, bye. See you later. I'm going to
Okay,
hang
bye.
out with them." Um, it really is difficult too because part of my reconnection journey that I had was the profound grief of being like, "We had this and you guys got rid of it." And I know why they did that because, Italians had a this is why it pisses me off that so many Italian Americans are conservative. Like, because I'm like in the corner, like, hey guys, do you remember when we were in predominantly Black and African American communities and like allied with them? And then something happened to our people and they were like, well now we got to be white. We still got slurs that they use. I found one on Instagram the other day. Someone called me one. And it was like an Italian American man that was like, "Remember where you come from, dirty, greasy." And I was like, "Hello? Why are we bringing this back?" Um, and it was so wild to like, because my mom was joking. She's like, "Well, you wanted to feel what the ancestors felt," and I'm like, "Okay, that's not funny." And she was like, "It
pause.
actually is." And I was like, "Mom." She's gonna be so pissed that I said that, but I love it because I'm like, she's not wrong, but like, I don't know if we should be returning this right now. But also, she was like, that also is as you're reconnecting and you're distancing yourself from being white. I'm not surprised when that happens because someone's like, oh, like you're more Italian than you are anything else. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still, it's not changing. It's an interesting dynamic too between like ethnicity and race that people don't often look at. Like there's some Italian Americans that are like, I'm not white, I'm Italian. I'm like, that's wrong. And then they're like, well, I'm only white. I'm like, also wrong. We're in the middle, right here. Um, but I understand why my ancestors did it, but there was this period of like realizing how much has been lost and trying to find even the small things that were left behind. Um, and as I kind of continued to like reconnect, I would do things and make things and I would tell my mom about them. She's like, "Oh, your great grandma did that." I go, "What? Huh?" So as I did these things, she began to kind of remember like, "Oh, I remember someone doing this." And that helped me kind of go in the direction like, "Okay, I know someone did this in my family. I know someone did this in my family." But it's also like when I started, I would try to ask questions to relatives and be like, "Do you remember this or this?" And they only remember the Catholic things. And there's potency and love and tradition in those Catholic things, right? In the way we pray the rosary, in the novenas, and all of those. But a lot of the tradition that I practice now is a lineage that is not mine. I have things that are from my lineage that I love, but a lot of it comes from my classes with the Root Circle, my classes with Mary Beth Bonfiglio, magic that is not necessarily Calabrian, but like Sicilian and Benevention, and all of these from Benevento, Benevention. That's wrong. Benevutin, Benevutution from Benevento, the Walnut Tree era. Um, But a lot of that comes from my teachers, and then other things are like I, do dream work and read and form relationships with certain plants and aspects of Italian American folk magic that then kind of progress it.
I think one thing that I want to point out for all of us as relating to immigrants, no matter what kind, is yes, like we can hold space for both, understanding that, especially even today's topic was created out of the need for survival, right? Everything is survival. And whether that was Latinos being like, oh, our only culture is Catholicism because that's the only way we're going to survive, or with you and Italians and saying that, like, oh, well, we're white passing, and if we can get away with it, we're going to slide over there to keep ourselves safe. And low key, like, separate ourselves from the communities that we were integrated in because we were all being targeted and separated, right? And for me too, like I also kind of have a bit of that, like there is the colorism that comes into play with like Latinos too, like especially since I'm like technically Afro Latino. Like I'm the darkest person in my family, and actually, right now, this is the lightest I've ever been in my entire life. Um, and I'm the only one in the family with like super tight, thick, curly hair. Um, for a while there, people thought I was adopted. Like that's how different I look from the rest of the family. And so I was never like quite Latino enough, but I was ambiguous enough that other people thought I was different things, whether they would come up and speak to me in Arabic or one of the many beautiful African languages, or any. I would get all these different languages that come up to me, and I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. And it was just this, and there's this liminality to it, and it's like, okay, well, I'm neither this, I'm neither that, and I wanted my culture. And I there were days where when I was trying to, and I left the Catholic Church and I was trying to figure things out, that it was like so full of grief, because it's like realizing I my degrees, my primary one doesn't matter in this regard, but I have two minors in art history and history. So learning a lot about my culture through that was like, wait a second, what the fuck? Where the fuck did this go? Why is it gone? Where the fuck is this? Why the fuck don't I know about this? Or things that I would find out later through my mother being like, oh, your grandmother would like blah, blah, blah. And like my grandmother would do like low key magia things, like magic things. But she would never call it that. Right. And then finding out like after I started practicing that my grandmother used to carry a dead hummingbird, which was like a thing until my grandfather found out, and that became a whole thing. Um, and so there's like a lot of this grief there, and like I understand that it's for survival, but it was also that rage, right? That anger of like, what the fuck? Like why am I being, why am I suffering and losing out on this because y'all wanted to be American to a country that hates you? Like, newsflash, country still hates you. It's more so now than, well, actually about the same now. We just went back. But it's just frustrating. And then, as you said, like learning these things, kind of guiding yourself down that path. Similar thing with me, but it was like as I was working with my spirits, as I was working with my ancestors, they were teaching me. And for a long time, I've talked about this on the show previously, like I was like, I don't really call myself certain things because of the fact that I wasn't trained. Like nobody taught me, like living person never taught me, right? Someone living the tradition never taught me. And then finding out through books or people that we've met through the podcast or through social media that like, oh, wait, the thing that spirit taught me is actually like traditional brujeria. Oh, wait, that's something that we do in our tradition. Oh, wait, that's something that they do in whatever country my ancestor that was talking to me is from, because I work with ancestry that's further back. Um, pre-colonization. So really far back. And so they'll teach me things and I'm like, that's weird, but okay, I'll do it. And then I find out later through research or meeting somebody that they're like, oh yeah, they did that like here and they do that here. And I'm like, oh, right. So like getting those lessons from the spirits themselves, and unfortunately that frustration, like for me, like I unfortunately am removed from my extended family. So like I can't ask my grandmother until she dies. Uh, like, what are these things? What would you do in this instance? What do I do for this? And for me, and I won't speak for Len, but it's been very healing to be in our tradition and have that reconnection to our people, to these spirits, to these practices that I felt so removed from and so isolated from, that it's been really nice and healing to kind of have this experience, that community in that regard, in terms of like coming back to the idea of like being descended from immigrants and what that means for us in our practices.
No, yeah, the evolution of traditions is fascinating. Seeing the way that it's had to be evolved and the decisions that are made. It's interesting. Um, what you were saying, Sebastian, about having to wait till she passes, girl, let me tell you, I had to wait for my great grandmother. Apparently, she knew a bunch of things, and I didn't know about it until she was on her deathbed. Our family was talking about it, but they had kept it secret for so long because it was so, um, like, they're Catholic, so this is like sinful, right? So it's fascinating. There was something else I was going to say. I lost my train of thought. We'll come back to it if it comes back.
Actually, Frankie, my great grandmother was from Sicily. Yeah, so one of my great grandmothers is from Sicily. And when she died, I also found out that she would do a bunch of shit. And um, I was like, why didn't anybody tell me? And this woman, unfortunately, in her last moments, had extreme dementia.
Mhm.
It was just really bad. But it was funny because she loved my mother. And my mother was not from the family. But my great grandmother would always like basically do little brujeria things, little magic things towards her. And my mom could catch it because obviously she was like, I grew up with this. What are we doing here?
Mhm.
And had a rosary from Sicily, that was made out of roses themselves,
Yep.
and all this other stuff. And my great grandmother, before she died, saw my mom, and her memory came back to her, and she was fully functional in front of my mother. And then after my mother went away, that's when she like kind of went back to being, the dementia kind of took hold again, and then she passed. But it was like funny
Mhm.
because when I went out there, I was in the house because we stayed in the house, that she passed away in, and being sensitive already as a child, I was like, what the fuck is all that I'm feeling? There's like so much residual here. There's like, and not necessarily negative, but like magic has a feeling. Like if you've casted a
Mhm.
spell in a space and somebody else comes in who's sensitive to that type of thing, they're gonna be like, ooh, what's that?
Hello. Mm,
Hello. Um,
hello?
but yeah, so like I definitely have seen a little bit of the Italian side, but primarily my exposure is through the Latino side.
Yeah. The Sicilian and Sicilian folk magic specifically is really fascinating, because it is, and the South and the North have their differences, but each region of Italy also is very, very specific. Similar to kind of these very ungreat United States, um, it if we go to the Midwest versus the South versus the Northeast, there's different pocket cultures that even more change based off of like imaginary state lines. But region is huge. And I think that is something that is fascinating to me from even an anthropology standpoint of the ways in which that our surroundings can inform magic and the materials we use.
Oh, I love that you bring that up. I did study anthropology for a little bit. But yeah, no, truly, like the way, for example, like originally being from Texas and moving up here to Denver, huge difference.
Mhm.
Even the spirits, the energy, the materia. I mean, going around and seeing how much Mullen is everywhere.
Yeah.
By the way, if you are in Colorado, Mullen is invasive. Go rip that shit out and use it for your magic. It's extremely invasive. So seeing that everywhere, and like having a background also in herbalism,
Mhm.
I was like, oh my god, so many medicinal herbs. And I was seeing like echinacea, which is also invasive here, and I was like, oh my god,
Mhm.
more. And yarrow, seeing all these different plants here that I was like, whoa, we did not have like so many ones that I don't recognize. And
Yeah.
not like state wise, like by those imaginary borders, not that far from Texas, but
Mhm.
also so drastically different.
Yeah.
And going from a place where the environment really informed my practice and my experiences there informed my practice, to here where it's kind of like, whoa, I'm kind of starting sort of fresh, but with like my dictionary. Like I actually know
Yeah.
these words now, I know what's going on, I know what to do. But it's like having to start that from scratch in a new space is something that kind of ties into what you were saying about like the regions and how different they are. I mean, if you love wine, the vintage, the varietal, the vineyard, all those things change drastically from region to
Mhm.
region, and you can taste those things in the wines.
Yeah.
Um, and that's definitely something that you pick up in that regard. And for me, I've been a bartender pretty much most of my working career, and one of my focuses is rum. And rum is the same way, like a Nicaraguan rum versus like a Jamaican rum, for example. Like
Mhm.
Jamaican rum has a signature funk to it. It's called the Jamaican funk.
That's
And you
so
can
fun.
always tell that a rum is Jamaican by this flavor palette. And the reason that it is because the sugarcane fields, they switch it out for banana every other crop season. So the soil starts to carry that banana funk, and then the sugarcane grows and carries it as well. So when you're making the molasses and all of these other things with that sugarcane, it carries that flavor.
This is so cool. I didn't know any of this.
Yeah, so it's really crazy. It's really weird. There's a Mexican rum that has a mushroom floating in it. Really good. I don't remember the name of it because it's weird and random. I think it starts with a U, but
I
it's
knew of
fantastic.
it was, I believe, a mezcal with like a mealworm in it.
Yeah. hmm
And it
Uh,
was so good.
I love mezcal.
I wanna try the one with the
One,
scorpion in it.
yes, yes,
It
I want to
sounds
try that one.
amazing.
Or like the ones with the snakes. I want the snake
Yes.
one. Ugh, I mean, I love scorpions
Man.
too. All the toxic like poison animals, give them to me in
Give me the poison
alcohol.
animals. I love it.
Give me the poison. In the end, they all taste the same to Father Johann.
Oh my god.
But yeah, there's a bunch of cool stuff, and I can talk about that all day. Because I used
Mhm.
to like in my practice, I would utilize different spirits for different things, no pun intended. And then I use alcohol bottles, like recycled alcohol bottles, because
Yeah.
they were used to house spirits. To
Yeah.
house spirits.
Yep.
Yeah, so listeners, if you have an empty alcohol bottle, see if any of your spirits want it. Might make a nice little cozy home for them.
Yeah.
But Len, do you want to ask your next question?
I do. It's not listed on the document. I have something else. So, Frankie, I've been following you since 2022, your peak witch talk days.
Oh my god.
Um, how has your practice evolved, and what was the catalyst for that evolution? If you're willing and able
Ooh.
to talk about it.
Yes. So I think that 2022 was crazy because it was when I moved from where I was living in Pennsylvania for 20 years to Colorado. And so I was going through a huge transition. And during that time, I also so my practice kind of it felt like a force evolve in a little bit of like moving to Colorado because suddenly I was in a completely different environment. My ancestors definitely like me being closer to the mountains because it especially with the pine trees because La Sila or the Pine Plateau is very big in Italy. Um and specifically in the region where my ancestors are from. So I knew I was going to go here and things were going to change. I just had no idea why or how. 2022 was really the year that I kicked off with my reconnection.
Mhm.
Um And even though in 2021 I was beginning and I was getting books and I was reading, I really started going more in depth with classes, with practice, with meeting plant ancestors in 2022. And during that, I was going through this giant transition that I was like in a completely new space in a new area. And I had like several things happen in that small frame of time. I had a book come out. I met my partner and I, moved. And so in many ways during this time, I was a lot less public with my practice. And I was also beginning to really root into folk magic, and explore the community in my area. And so I think that I am way more of a folk practitioner now than I was in 2022. And part of that is because I just kind of found my way back to things and back to region and space and where I was. There were a lot of folk practices I did in 2021, but I really kind of went deep and deep dived in 2022. And that, along with like beginning to work at a local metaphysical store, beginning to take more classes with um, Lisa Fazio and meeting with plant ancestors, and also kind of meeting my partner, it like hit a bunch of things. And I was like, all right, we're working with the saints. Let's go. Michael's on the altar now. Don't know why, but he is here. And I think that that evolution was really prompted by my move across the country. And it was also prompted by this intense kind of like need of to belong, which Mary Beth Bonfiglio calls the wound of belonging, because we all want to belong somewhere into something. And it's something we actively have to tend to and actively have to take care of, because if we don't take care of that wound of belonging, we end up sometimes doing things or acting in a way that harms others, because we want to belong so bad. And so that started, me meeting like Loretta, me meeting my some of my best friends right now, meeting a bunch of people who were in folk practice and doing folk practice that overall influenced me a huge amount. Um, and so for me, I think that now I also like part of this journey is like I'm no longer on TikTok. And the reason I'm not is because because the government now owns it. And two, because I can't make my practice palatable for TikTok anymore. Like I can't do it. Um, and TikTok by itself is kind of a continuous wormhole of bullshit, uh, especially witch talk, but TikTok in general. And I kind of got to a point where I'm like, I'm not going to continue to try to save this and do damage control for a lot of these things that I'm seeing. I'm just going to go somewhere else. And I'm going to focus on in-person community instead. And that was also kind of a shift that happened in this like evolution.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. I because I also have been I love your vlogs. I love your vlogs. I love all the
Thank
content that you make.
you. Thank you. I like my vlogs too.
I love a lot of what you kind of said. It's like that journey, and coming back to that concept of like, oh, I moved from somewhere else and then to Denver, and then the way your spirits are like, whoa, things are different. And it's funny, like yours were like really happy that you were like by the pines and everything like that, and not that mine are unhappy, but they were like, where'd the water go? Where's the water? You mean the state borders don't touch the ocean? Because I'm originally from California, then I moved to Texas, and now I'm in Colorado. So this is my first time living in a landlocked state, and I'm like, I can feel how far the ocean is. Where is it? And like I work a lot with water spirits, right? So storms, water, kind of obviously a connection there. And so the first thing I did was like go to the river here, and I was like, hello. Hi. This was the only water I could find. Hello. My spirits were a little like, specifically my ancestors were like, where's the ocean? where is that? But I love all the things you were saying, and like how, one of the things that I teach my students a lot is like your experiences inform your practice, right? So like the being exposed to certain things, being around certain people, around the folk, right? As we all say, like you can't be a folk practitioner and not have the folk. And so these things can really change things. And like how you said, like suddenly you looked over, now St. Michael's on the altar. Um, what are you doing in my house? I want waffle fries. Anyway, yeah, so there's that aspect that comes into play with all of it. But love that. Low key, we've talked about St. Michael before, but I'm not going to bring that up right now.
No, I think we should. Let's talk about it
We
real quick.
should? Let's talk
No,
about
yeah,
it
yeah.
real
Talk about
quick.
Because
Michael, our good
about
man
Michael.
Mike.
We talked about, what was it last time? Because I remember this is also something that Rye and Voga had said on the red
Yeah.
text when they were talking about Michael. Voga specifically had described Michael as being like the DL guy that's like um
Like,
like,
would hate crime you and then turn
yeah,
around and
like
open
he'll
Grinder
judge
and
you,
message
but
you.
yeah, yeah, like he'll help out, but it's like almost disrespectful.
I need to text Voga about this because I'm like, dude, you did not say this. Oh, about Mike.
It was years ago.
That's so funny and also
Yeah.
so right. Because he just
No,
is
yeah.
like, he's chill, but like, you gotta leave him a voicemail. And he's like,
Right.
I'll get to that
Low
eventually.
key, don't know how this will come across, but he kind of gives like the cop that's on Grinder
Stop.
and like would fuck you in his cop car, but then be like, okay,
No.
get out. Go.
Oh no. He is patron saint of cops, and I hate that for him. Or patron
Yeah.
archangel of cops. I hate that for him. It's my least favorite thing about him. And I'm like, sir, not in this house. Don't
Mm-mm.
behave that way,
No.
please.
Ugh, a cab.
A cab indeed.
But
Oh
it's
yeah.
funny how like for me too, I started including my ancestors in my practice. I started communicating with them, and suddenly we have like 4 or 5 different saints on the altar now.
Yeah.
They demand it. They said, "We'll
Yeah.
help only if this."
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
The thought came and he went, no,
No.
no.
um,
Oh man.
my only connection to the Saints is my name, and it's my
Mhm.
little fuck you to the church.
Yeah.
Love it.
um, Sebastian, the queer saint, the patron
Mhm.
saint of archers. I was a competitive archer. I was going to go compete in the 2020 Olympics, Summer Olympics for
Whoa.
archery.
Damn.
And then the world ended, and I didn't feel like trying again. But yeah, so Sebastian was the name I picked during my confirmation.
Mm.
And then at the same time, it was like my low key little, I'm going to change this ritual around of confirmation and make it my own little hijack it kind of
Yeah.
thing. And my favorite villain in my favorite book series at the time was named Sebastian. And he said, if I cannot reach heaven, then I will raise hell.
Okay, T. Damn.
Right. Right.
You said
And
I'm gonna piss off every Catholic I know.
yep.
I love it.
That's my connection to the Saints.
Mm, yeah.
They're not in my house.
They're not my I have a lot in my house, which Len, similar to what you said, I set up the ancestor altar and then the saints kind of just started
Right.
appearing. And it wasn't even intentional. I didn't set out to be like, yeah, I'm going to work with the saints. It's just like sometimes you find your grandma's prayers and she's like, oh, these are the two saints she worked with. I should set up a space because these are ancestral. And then over time, they keep appear. There's like more and more and more and more. And so now I have 6 active saint shrines in my home. Um, and most of those saints are just some of them I work with really intimately, and some I'm like I only go to in emergencies, but they all have a space.
The Rolodex of saints.
Truly, I do need like
There's a
a
saint for that.
oh, I forgot Joseph. Can't forget Joseph. I have 7 active saint altars in my home. I'm running out of space,
Oh,
No,
which is
yeah.
unfortunate.
yeah.
Yeah, they were kind of wanting their own space, but I was like, listen, this we are limited with resources. You're gonna have to be okay with sharing a space with them, with the ancestors,
Mhm.
or you won't have a space here at all. Sorry.
Yep.
And now I think there's four of them on there. No, 5. Yeah.
Yeah, they just kind of start appearing.
So, with that being said, we kind of talked about it, but how do you define justify work?
Mm. So justified work is in many ways being a practitioner, being a worker, and being asked for like certain spells, certain workings, and before you take that on or before you do it on for yourself or for others, you slow down and you ask the cards, you ask ancestors, you ask spirits you work with, is this justified? Is this going to bring justice? Is this warranted? Is this going to work? Is also, in my opinion, kind of a part of it because something can be incredibly justified and there can be a huge block in between you and that goal. And that tells me that I have extra things to do before I do that big working. It is, in many ways, a centering of not just, okay, I'm doing this spell because I feel like doing this spell, because I think there are a lot of practitioners on the internet, none in my community, but like in general, that will do workings for people or for themselves and just kind of do it because they want to, which is in some cases very valid. I have had situations where my intuition's like, yeah, this is justified, do it. But there are a lot of situations where I think that maybe if people slowed down and asked cards and asked if it was justified or the way they were going about it, if it was justified, maybe we would see better results on a bigger scale. Um, and I think for me, every time that I do justified work, divination is a part of it. We're focusing on not just if the worker is like in many ways the scales of justice or quote unquote karma, whatever you want to call it, and the worker represents that hand. We also have to be a just justice. We can't do things just because it pisses us off. We have to actually sit down and wonder, okay, is this something that I'm doing because I feel really angry about it and it's personal to me, or is this something that this person actually deserves it? Because with, not to quote Spider-Man, but like with great power comes great responsibility. If you're being handed things that can seriously cause harm magically to someone, you have to be trusted not to just use that on anyone.
Big on that. Big
Yes.
on that.
Yeah.
I teach my students constantly, like, first and foremost, take a moment, no matter what spell you're doing, ground yourself. Take a moment and pause, and be like, whoa, what am I doing? No matter what kind of spell, doesn't matter if it's baneful, malefic, benefic, it does not matter. And I always teach them divination before, divination after. Um, and this is something that needs to be done. And it's especially needing to be done if you're like me, whose spirits are very hot. There was a moment there where I wasn't really being mindful of like how hot my spirits were, and they would take matters into their own hands. And I'd have to be like, okay, pause, hold on, not what I meant. um, and then I learned and was taught like, okay, give them ice water, give them ice, give them cold water, give them coconut water, have them cool the fuck down and watch how things will change. And it was a huge change, you know. And for me, a part of that too was like slowing down, and being like, hey, things are getting really heated. I'm getting really heated. You know, you know the audio. That's not fair. Wait, I'm an adult. I need to calm down.
That is me every single day where I get upset and I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Where's the water? It's like dousing yourself in it.
constantly just coconuts. I just carry a bundle of coconuts constantly. And yeah, no, vary that because I'm the same way. And I am somebody who can get very heated very quickly. So like one of my spirits is like related to water in the sense of like in an instance there can be a flash flood and then it's like, oh wait,
Mhm.
that was unnecessary. hmm, maybe we didn't need to do all that. So
Sorry.
taking it from somebody who has learned this the hard way and is still learning constantly, I will always be learning, is like take a moment to slow down, do some divination. Your spirits might be like, hey, you're just kind of crazy. Take a moment, chill out, and let's see if you should even do this.
Mhm.
And you listeners might be surprised how many times they're like, no, no, don't worry, don't do that. That's not necessary. It also will keep you from like a lot of different experiences, and I mean that in a good way, of like having maybe what we might call like a spell backfire. You know, you
Mhm.
didn't check if this person had wards, and spirits of protection, ancestors of protection, warrior spirits, whatever you want to call it, and now your shit's fucked. You got your shit rocked all because you didn't take a moment.
Yes.
And I think I said this on a recent episode. Yeah, with Marshall, is like one of the things I teach my students is around baneful and malefic magic. If you couldn't take the knife and plunge it into your targets while making eye contact with them,
Mhm.
don't do
Don't
it.
do it. Yeah. Yeah. 100% agree in every form
Allegedly.
because it allegedly. Like if you aren't comfortable physically causing harm to this person, don't do it magically because
100%.
it's allegedly. It's
Mm.
like I think this is also an interesting conversation because people are often like, well, this is magic. I won't have to think about that. I'm like, do you think it doesn't work? Like, there are a lot of people that I feel like don't actually think that the things we do
Yep.
work, and then they do it and something insane happens, and they're like, "Oh, no," and they become a born again Christian. And you're like, "Okay, well, you should have been believing your." Yeah, I think it is, like, something very interesting that, like, a lot of people and a lot of practitioners, I think, still don't fully believe that this is real and what we do has power and potency because they do something and something. And like, I used to be like this. I did something and something happened, and I'm like, whoa, okay. Um, and over time, it's like you have to give magic weight. If you want to do baneful and malefic spells and you're just doing them and then something happens and you're like, oh, that was really intense. I didn't mean for that. Do you think it doesn't work?
Mm.
Why?
Mhm.
There are
Yeah, a lot
layers
of
to this.
yes, yes, a lot of these people that call themselves witches do not believe in witchcraft. They don't believe in magic. It's insane. Like,
Yeah.
why? I don't know.
They
Why do
want to
they
be
do
Catholic
this?
so bad.
Exactly.
They think it's
Exactly.
spicy psychology. And I'm like, yeah, some practices are sure, you
Mhm.
can call them spicy psychology. Once you get into where I am with folk magic, with justified folk magic, we're past that. This is real world shit. You are taking spirit contracts on and contracts with ancestors and contracts with all of these people. And if you forget their offerings, you are going to have consequences. It is like one of those things that, like, people, I think that you can go as deep into magic as you want. Some people stay here, and I've met people who stay here. And I don't get along with them because I'm all the way down here in the dirt, in the roots, in the like, in the graveyard dirt too. And they're up here like, I love intentions. And I'm like, I love intentions too.
The rose
That's
quartz
so
up the pussy.
no, literally I'm like, this is if that works for you, fantastic. Surface kind of intentions, soft, like this kind of stuff, good. I think there's always a bit there that is like you can't have that without looking at the root of things. Um, but I inherently don't really get along with people who stay up here because I'm like all the way down here, like, yeah, so have you ever taken a fucking work into the graveyard and talked to this guy and been like, hey, what's up? And given him, and they're like, I would never do that. And I'm like, okay,
Me.
This is
cool.
why we're not
Casey is
friends.
Like,
crazy.
Casey
Casey
like,
is
is crazy.
wild.
So, if you ever listen to any of our other episodes, I have a Casey.
Allegedly.
Do you know allegedly? They're allegedly FBI
allegedly,
agent listening.
KC.
Casey. Anyway,
Weather magic is fun.
weather magic is great,
I
but
love weather magic. Storms, 10
some
out of 10.
those spirits need to eat. Okay, and listen, they ate
They did eat.
a
They
They
ate a
lot.
devoured.
snack. It is one
The
of those
house down,
things.
honey.
It's like, yeah, like, and then people hear that and they're like horrified. And I'm like, that's in some ways justified work. We don't get to decide what justice is for someone we're working on. If someone comes to you and they say you want this, you can pull cards and you can be like, I can't do this for you. But if it says it's justified and you're the worker they're coming to, are you going to help them bring justice?
Very that.
It
Yeah.
reminds me of a story I was told. I don't remember who told me this story. I'm pretty sure it was my mentor, but I don't want to name her in case it's not her. Um, someone told me that there was Sebastian. You've heard me tell the story. It was when we were talking with Genesis. There was
Mm,
a wild weather. There was an election going on for a local community, and the rich people in the community, the people that had more money, of course, all Republicans in this area, they're all conservatives, and they were voting on something that would negatively impact minority groups in this community, and they won, but at the expense of the land and the community there. So over a period of time, like a week or so after, within that a week, there was insane flooding in this town, and only one half of the community was impacted, and it was only the half of the community that fought against the land, basically. So the land was hungry. The land demanded payment. Just something to keep in mind.
And she
I
ate.
she did eight. She did eight. That's not a sentence.
Did
Hold on.
eat.
She did eat. There we go. It is interesting too because I truly and honestly believe that every single practitioner should have some sort of relationship with the land, even if that's just you're not my land to tend, but I'm going to work to bring the original tenders to you. That's a perfectly valid way to support the land is by saying, I want indigenous people to take care of this. I want this to be given to the original people who lived here. And if it's a lot of different situations, but like I had a conversation because I originally kind of felt weird about working with the land because I'm like, well, this isn't my land. This was stolen land. And both the land where I used to live and the land here, I kind of researched native plants, areas, and ways to take care of the land and kind of the climate. And I was like, okay, do I have permission to plant native species? Do I have permission to do this? And I had a ceremony here and had a friend who was like, the land has accepted you. And I go, really? Are we sure about that? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. Um, but sometimes, even though this land is one that does not belong to me and is stolen, um, my goal eventually is to have part of it because I don't own the land I'm on. But like, if that ever becomes a thing, I'm gonna be like, so is there anyone who wants to come tend? Like, I want to give part of it back, and that's always been the plan. But because I can't do that right now, I'm like, okay, so how do I make this more habitable for the native species? Part of this too is like, if you're not taking care of the land in any way, you're not picking up trash, you're not weeding, you're not tending to the spirits on the land is more likely to be pissed at you, especially if you're doing something like damaging it.
Very that.
Yeah.
Like, since I'm so new to Denver, I am still forming relations with the land here.
Mhm.
And I can already tell that my relationship is different than the relations I had with the land in Texas. So in the city that I was in, I was like a caretaker for the land. I the working that I allegedly did relating to storms and floods was because the spirits were very upset about the drought and how little water there was. And this river is extremely important to all of the spirits within the land there. And so I did my thing, but the spirits needed to eat, and they did. And listen, that's a couple few less white supremacist in the world. um, so, yeah, but you do have to be prepared for this type of work. Like I tell my students, like I'm not going to give you morals. My morals very different than everybody else's, as we have put one and one together. If you have critical thinking skills, my morals not the same. But I always tell them, like, I'm not going to give you a set of ethics or morals to follow. That's for you to figure out if you can live with it or not. That's between you and your spirits. Um, I've done things that will haunt me for the rest of my life, and I will talk about those in the post show. Um, and things that I'm like, you know what? Fuck yeah. And I do it again. Um, and you have to be prepared for that. And again, this isn't just baneful, malefic work. Blessings also come that way because blessings don't always look the way that we think. And some of the things that I teach people is like, remember that a blessing and a curse are the same coin. A curse is just an inverted blessing, and sometimes a blessing is an inverted curse. And sometimes it's really hard to see the difference in these things. And so you might be blessing someone, but guess what? You might make their life hell by giving them this blessing if you're not careful. And these are things that I always just tell my students, like, just be mindful, do a reading, see what your spirits are telling you, work your mediumship so that way your spirits can just tell you directly,
Yes.
um, real time, and see what that is.
I think that the Marshall and I had a conversation about his recent book, um, pretty recently. And we were talking about ethics and morals in practice. And I was like, "Do you think there are inherent ethics and morals?" And he goes, "No." I think that kind of touches on what you just said, because every culture, community, folk magic that is born of a people, those people have particular ethics, morals, things that define that community and that culture. Um, and yours may be a little different, or yours may fall right in line with that culture and community you're a part of, different traditions, different places, different, all of these things have like, we even think about laws, about like stand your ground laws. That is not a thing. If you go over to Pencil, like in the Northeast, that is not a thing. You come out here, it's normal. People talk about it all the time. That's a different set of legality, but even more so ethics and morals that people are okay with doing to protect their space. And so we think a lot about what I think that every practitioner needs to spend less time wondering what other people are saying is and isn't okay for their practice. And like you said, talk to their spirits, talk to the community, talk to, if you have peers, mentors, leaders, elders, spend time talking to them about their experiences and what they think is and isn't okay. And then begin exploring what you are okay with.
I think too, like for us as Latinos, like a lot of the work that we do came out of a need for survival. Whole traditions came out of the need for survival. So no, there isn't going to be this moral ground of like, no, don't hurt nobody. It's like, bitch, bite back. Uh, swing on them, and very much that. And I think a lot of people forget that there is this instance of survival, right? The dominations, amares, all these things, curses, hexes, different types of work that was created because of the need for survival. And sometimes that's what we need. And even now, like especially now, with everything going on in the States at least, but globally, everywhere. It seems like there's always something. So working these things is necessary because it is still a means of survival.
I think of like, yeah, what you were saying, Sebastian, that comes up a lot, especially with the amares, because people like to, um, they like to debate whether or not morally or ethically it's fine to do those types of love binding spells to people, which is like, you have to understand why it was invented in the first place, like why they were used. A lot of times people did not have the autonomy and the agency to be able to own property or to have a bank account. So a lot of these spells are to ensure the safety and well-being of people that didn't have access to these resources. Keep that in mind. Don't people like to get all the moral superiority, all this whatever. It's stupid.
My hot take is that if you're not enculturated in something, it's not your practice, you're not in that tradition, you have no business speaking on whether it's right or wrong. This is also something that we learn in academics. Like, as studying anthropology, we learn immediately where are our biases. How are we biased when we're walking into a culture? How can we sit those biases to the side? Because we need to, in order to fully understand and be immersed in the culture, we have to say, okay, this isn't, because white supremacy and white savior complexes are born from someone walking into a culture they're not a part of, or a tradition they're not a part of, and saying, well, this isn't how we do this back home. We're more civilized. And it's like this one white guy who's never been outside England. And that is literally a root, a colonial root. And so when people want to be like, well, I would never do that, it's unethical, it's immoral, I'm like, okay, so what's your background in this tradition? They go, well, I don't have one. Then shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. It is literally, if anthropologists who study culture and folk practitioners and all these people are slowing down and saying, wait, where are my biases? How am I being biased against a culture? How am I possibly contributing to white supremacy? At least I do that, and there are several classes that talk about that. Why are more people, and I know it's because people are like not that self-aware sometimes, but personally, like, I don't think that I should be hearing anyone's opinion on something they're not actively in.
Okay. Um, I was like gonna say like yeah, ethnocentrism is like super big, and I'm always teaching my students that too when they're like researching. I always take a quote that my anthropology professor would say over and over again: is remember that the anthropological sources that you might be reading are likely written by a dead old racist white dude. Uh, so always take that into consideration and the bias of that.
Literally that. Like, there is a move now, and I take some classes with professors who are focused more on decolonial and deconstructed kind of methods. Like, I'm taking an entire psychedelic anthropology class that focuses on those sacred plants as ancestors, not as substances. And the entire time he's like, these are ancestors. These are ancestors. And everyone's like, but they're substances. We should have access to them. And I'm like, maybe you shouldn't take psilocybin, bro. Like, why? Why? And I'm one of the only students who in my group that talked about a sacred plant ancestor of mine. But in the group that I'm in, I'm one of the only people, because our last prompt is, if you could talk to a sacred plant ancestor, what would you say? And I chose a sacred plant ancestor I know, milkwort, like, who's a psychoactive. I chose her and I wrote about her. And I was one of the only people who did that. Uh, a lot of other people chose like psychedelic ancestors, not from like some of the ones we covered in class, which is okay. But I was like, no, this plant is like an ancestor of mine that I know deeply. Um, I think that if and so this is another thing with reconnection and ancestors, right? Like, your ancestors aren't just humans, because a lot of people are like, well, I don't know where my ancestors are from. Plants are everyone's ancestors. The trees outside your door, the plants, not all of them are closed to you. There are some that will be closed to you, but and that will tell you no. But if we spend more time sitting with like some of the ancestors in our space, like mountains, our ancestors, rocks, our ancestors, roots, our ancestors, roses, our ancestors, all of these ancestors we can talk to and get to know a little better. I don't know where I was going with this because I got distracted, but I do think we should all be doing that more, um, because it allows us to more fully understand this deconstruction of the idea that plants are tools for us to use, that they don't have spirits.
It's a really good mindset to have, and I think more people need it. I mean, in
Mhm.
our tradition, we kind of hold something similar in the sense that the spirits are seen as our ancestors, and these spirits are like things and experiences and aspects and things that are anthropomorphized. So I think there's like a similarity there in
Yeah.
our tradition, at least. Um, but I wanted to ask, we do have a question from Instagram
Oh, yes.
from a uh, juju.saya. They ask, as a queer person, is it justifiable to hex people who operate in homophobia in the form of rumors and hate?
Totally depends on what your cards say. Because we talked about this a bit earlier. That person, even though they're a terrible person, that may not be a working for you to do. That person may have a lot of protections. That person may be, you may, so I would recommend pulling cards on it. I think that another part of this, one of the first questions of, you know, that Loretta mentioned in the class I took with her about it is, and that stuck with me, is this going to matter in 5 years? Are you actively being harmed by this person? Or is it something that they're harming someone else? What is the effects of that? Um,
The best way to to do this, the best crystal for protection against homophobia, is a brick. um, No, yes, we're talking about justified work here. So check with your spirits, check with your cards, see if they
Hello.
say yes. Might be you have to go to somebody else. Might be that you have to do something else first before you do that. So check in with all that before you move forward. Kind of sounds like you have somebody in mind. So do some
Ah,
divination.
okay.
Do some things to check. If you have to break some words, break some words.
Yeah. Of course, do divination, know what your limits are, know what you are capable of, and if you are capable of working around whatever the shit they got, do it. Swing, ho!
What is that audio? You're capable of great monstrous things or something like that, where she's like saying you're capable of,
What
what
is
does
it
she say?
from?
God, I'm so bad at knowing where things are from. Len, I'm chronically online, not that level though. I can't tell where something's from just off the um it's like, I don't know, it, it's probably TikTok. Oh, oh my god. You're capable of great things. Things like murder.
What? What is that
Is
from?
what they say. Um Allegedly. Don't well, allegedly. I am not telling you to go and murder anybody. Um but if you find the audio, it's great.
My ancestor said, "You're saying too much. Calm down." So that is the end of my answer to the question, divine on it, and go from there.
Our spirits are also like that.
Yep. So they were like, shh, shh.
They said too much. Don't talk.
Yeah. So that was
Silence.
the answer. Divine on it. Go from there.
Well, I think that's a good segue into our little closing. Thank you for dropping your question on Instagram. Listeners, you can always drop your questions for us, and we will cover them on air and discuss our perspectives, point of views, our experiences, and maybe what we would do. But this has been a wonderful episode with Frankie, the chaotic witch ant. Next week, we're going to explore, as a kind of a segue, curses and hexes, crafting and breaking malefica and baneful work. So this will be a deep dive into curse work, quote unquote ethics, and how to protect against them or reverse them or whatever the fuck you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So don't forget to find our products such as oils, candles, amuletos, spellwork, and more over at www.unsanctionedonline.com. And don't forget to join us over at Patreon at patreon.com/unsanctioned. The UNS is capitalized, where we have 3 tiers for you to embark upon. It's also where you'll get access to our after show called Unedited, where we leave things unedited, allegedly, where we'll continue our conversation with Frankie. So join us over there. Don't forget to find our products such as oils, candles, amuletos, spellwork, and divination and more over at www.unsanctionedonline.com.
And at this time, we would like to thank our Patreon supporters at the Blasphemer tier by name. To Pablo Rodriguez, thank you for your support and walking with us on the path less traveled.